The AK-47 is a selective-fire, gas-operated 7.62 x 39 mm assault rifle, developed in the Soviet Union by Mikhail Kalashnikov. It is officially known in the Soviet documentation as Avtomat Kalashnikova Design. Work on the AK-47 began in the last year of World War II. In 1946, the AK-47 was presented for official military trials, and in 1948, the fixed-stock version was introduced into active service with selected units of the Soviet Army. An early development of the design was the AKS, which was equipped with an underfolding metal shoulder stock. In 1949, the AK-47 was officially accepted by the Soviet Armed Forces and used by the majority of the member states of the Warsaw Pact. Even after almost 7 decades, the model and its variants remain the most popular and widely used assault rifles in the world because of the substantial reliability under harsh conditions, low production costs compared to contemporary Western weapons, availability in virtually every geographic region, and ease of use. The AK-47 has been manufactured in many countries and has seen service with armed forces as well as irregular forces worldwide, and was the basis for developing many other types of individual and crew-served firearms. As of 2004, of the estimated 500 million firearms worldwide, approximately 100 million belong to the Kalashnikov family, 3/4 of which are AK-47s. History. Origins. During World War II, the Sturmgewehr 44 assault rifle used by German forces made a deep impression on the Soviet counterparts. The select-fire rifle was chambered for a new intermediate cartridge, the 7.92 x 33 mm Kurz, and combined the firepower of a submachine gun with the range and accuracy of a rifle. On 15 July 1943, an earlier model of the Sturmgewehr was demonstrated before the People's Commissariat of Arms of the USSR. The Soviets were impressed with the weapon and immediately set about developing an intermediate-caliber automatic rifle of their own, to replace the PPSH-41 submachine guns and outdated Mosin-Nagant bolt-action rifles that armed most of the Soviet army. The Soviets soon developed the 7.62 x 39 mm M43 cartridge, the semi-automatic SKS carbine, and the RPD light machine gun. Shortly after World War II, the Soviets developed the AK-47 assault rifle, which would quickly replace the SKS in Soviet service. In the 1960s, the Soviets introduced the RPK light machine gun, an AK-47 type weapon with a stronger receiver, a longer heavy barrel, and a bipod, that would eventually replace the RPD light machine gun. Concept. Mikhail Kalashnikov began his career as a weapon designer in 1941, while recuperating from a shoulder wound, which he received during the Battle of Bryansk. Kalashnikov himself stated, "I was in the hospital, and a soldier in the bed beside me asked, 'Why do our soldiers have only one rifle for 2 or 3 of our men, when the Germans have automatics?' So I designed one. I was a soldier, and I created a machine gun for a soldier. It was called an Avtomat Kalashnikova, the automatic weapon of Kalashnikov AK, and it carried the date of its first manufacture, 1947. The AK-47 is best described as a hybrid of previous rifle technology innovations. Kalashnikov decided to design an automatic rifle combining the best features of the American M1 and the German StG-44. Kalashnikov's team had access to these weapons and had no need to reinvent the wheel. Kalashnikov himself observed, "A lot of Russian army soldiers ask me how one can become a constructor, and how new weaponry is designed. These are very difficult questions. Each designer seems to have his own paths, his own successes and failures. But one thing is clear: before attempting to create something new, it is vital to have a good appreciation of everything that already exists in this field. I myself have had many experiences confirming this to be so. There are claims about Kalashnikov copying other designs, like Balkan's TKB-415 or Simonov's AVS-31. Early designs. Kalashnikov started work on a submachine gun design in 1942 and with a light machine gun in 1943. Early in 1944, Kalashnikov was given some M1943 x 39mm cartridges and informed that there were several designers working on weapons for this new Soviet small arms cartridge. It was suggested to him that this new weapon might well lead to greater things, and he undertook work on the new rifle. Quote, in 1944, he entered a design competition with this new 7.62 x 39mm semi-automatic gas-operated, long-stroke piston carbine, strongly influenced by the American M1 Garand. The rifle that Kalashnikov designed was in the same class as the familiar AK-47 Simonov with fixed magazine and gas tube above the barrel. Quote, however, this new Kalashnikov design lost out to a Simonov design. In 1946, a new design competition was initiated to develop a new assault rifle. Kalashnikov submitted an entry. It was gas-operated rifle with a short-stroke gas piston above the barrel, a breech block mechanism similar to his 1944 carbine, and a curved 30-round magazine. Kalashnikov's rifles AK-1 and AK-2 proved to be reliable weapons and were accepted to a second round of competition along with other designs. These prototypes had a rotary bolt, a two-part receiver with separate trigger unit housing, dual controls and a non-reciprocating charging handle located on the left side of the weapon. In late 1946, as the rifles were being tested, one of Kalashnikov's assistants, Alexander Zaytsev, suggested a major redesign to improve reliability. At first, Kalashnikov was reluctant given that the rifle had already fared better than its competitors. Eventually, however, Zaytsev managed to persuade Kalashnikov. In November 1947, the new prototypes were completed. It utilized a long-stroke gas piston above the barrel. The upper and lower receivers were combined into a single receiver. The selector and safety were combined into a single control lever, dust cover on the right side of the rifle, and the bolt handle was simply attached to the bolt carrier. This simplified the design and production of the rifle. The first Army trial series began in early 1948. The new rifle proved to be reliable under a wide range of conditions with convenient handling characteristics. In 1949, it was adopted by the Soviet Army as 7.62mm Kalashnikov assault rifle. Further development. There were many difficulties during the initial phase of production. The first production models had stamped sheet metal receivers with a milled trunnion and buttstock insert and a stamped body. Difficulties were encountered in welding the guide and ejector rails, causing high rejection rates. Instead of halting production, a heavy machined receiver was substituted for the sheet metal receiver. This was a more costly process, but the use of machined receivers accelerated production as tooling and labor for the earlier Mosin Nagant rifles machined receiver were easily adapted. Partly because of these problems, the Soviets were not able to distribute large numbers of the new rifle to soldiers until 1956. During this time, production of the interim SKS rifle continued. Once the manufacturing difficulties of non-milled receivers had been overcome, a redesigned version designated the AKM was introduced in 1959. This new model used a stamped sheet metal receiver and featured a slanted muzzle brake on the end of the barrel to compensate for muzzle rise under recoil. In addition, a hammer retarder was added to prevent the weapon from firing out of battery during rapid or automatic fire. This is also sometimes referred to as a cyclic rate reducer, or simply rate reducer, as it also has the effect of reducing the number of rounds fired per minute during automatic fire. It was also roughly one-third lighter than the previous model. Both licensed and unlicensed production of the Kalashnikov weapons abroad were almost exclusively of the AKM variant, partially due to the much easier production of the stamped receiver. This model is the most commonly encountered, having been produced in much greater quantities. All rifles based on the Kalashnikov design are frequently referred to as AK-47s in the West, although this is only correct when applied to rifles based on the original three receiver types. In most former Eastern Bloc countries, the weapon is known simply as the Kalashnikov or AK. The differences between the milled and stamped receives including the use of rivets rather than welds on the stamped receiver, as well as the placement of a small dimple above the magazine well for stabilization of the magazine. Replacement. In 1974, the Soviets began replacing their AK-47 and AKM rifles with a newer design, the AK-74, which uses 5.45 times 39 mm ammunition. This new rifle and cartridge had only started to be manufactured in Eastern European nations when the Soviet Union collapsed, drastically slowing production of the AK-74 and other weapons of the former Soviet bloc. Design. The AK-47 was designed to be a simple, reliable automatic rifle that could be manufactured quickly and cheaply, using mass production methods that were state-of-the-art in the Soviet Union during the late 1940s. The AK-47 uses a long-stroke gas system that is generally associated with great reliability in adverse conditions. The large gas piston, generous clearances between moving parts, and tapered cartridge case design allow the gun to endure larger amounts of foreign matter and fouling without failing to cycle. Cartridge. The AK fires the 7.62 times 39 mm cartridge with a muzzle velocity of 715 meters per second. The cartridge weight is 16.3 grams, the projectile weight is 7.9 grams. The original Soviet M43 bullets are 123-grain boat-tail bullets with a copper-plated steel jacket, a large steel core, and some lead between the core and the jacket. The AK has excellent penetration when shooting through heavy foliage, walls or a common vehicle's metal body and into an opponent attempting to use these things as cover. The 7.62 times 39 mm M43 projectile does not generally fragment when striking an opponent and has an unusual tendency to remain intact even after making contact with bone. The 7.62 times 39 mm round produces significant wounding in cases where the bullet tumbles in tissue, but produces relatively minor wounds in cases where the bullet exits before beginning to yaw. In the absence of yaw, the M43 round can pencil through tissue with relatively little injury. Most, if not all, of the 7.62 times 39 mm ammunition found today is of the upgraded M67 variety. This variety deleted the steel insert, shifting the center of gravity rearward and allowing the projectile to destabilize at about 3.3 in. nearly 6.7 in earlier in tissue than the M43 round. This change also reduces penetration in ballistic gelatin to -25 in for the newer M67 round versus -29 in for the older M43 round. However, the wounding potential of M67 is mostly limited to the small permanent wound channel the bullet itself makes, especially when the bullet yaws. Operating mechanism to fire. The operator inserts a loaded magazine, pulls back and releases the charging handle, and then pulls the trigger. In semi-automatic, the firearm fires only once, requiring the trigger to be released and depressed again for the next shot. In full automatic, the rifle continues to fire automatically, cycling fresh rounds into the chamber until the magazine is exhausted. The pressure is released from the trigger. After ignition of the cartridge, primer and propellant, rapidly expanding propellant gases are diverted into the gas cylinder above the barrel through a vent near the muzzle. The buildup of gases inside the gas cylinder drives the long-stroke piston and bolt carrier rearward, and a cam guide machined into the underside of the bolt carrier along with an ejector spur on the bolt carrier rail guide. Rotates the bolt approximately 35 degrees and unlocks it from the barrel extension via a camming pin on the bolt. The moving assembly has about 5.5 mm of free travel, which creates a delay between the initial recoil impulse of the piston and the bolt unlocking sequence, allowing gas pressures to drop to a safe level before the seal between the chamber and the bolt is broken. The AK-47 does not have a gas valve. Excess gases are ventilated through a series of radial ports in the gas cylinder. The Kalashnikov operating system offers no primary extraction upon bolt rotation, but uses an extractor claw to eject the spent cartridge case. Barrel. The rifle received a barrel with a chrome-lined bore and 4 right-hand grooves at a 240 mm rifling twist rate. The gas block contains a gas channel that is installed at a slanted angle in relation to the bore axis. The muzzle is threaded for the installation of various muzzle devices such as a muzzle brake or a blank firing adapter. The standard AK-47 barrel does not counteract muzzle rise and climb, as well lateral shift to the right, much like the AKM's offset muzzle brake. Fire selector. The fire selector is a large lever located on the right side of the rifle. It acts as a dust cover and prevents the charging handle from being pulled fully to the rear when it is unsafe. It is operated by the shooter's right forefingers and has 3 settings: safe, full auto, and semi-auto. The reason for this is that under stress a soldier will push the selector lever down with considerable force, bypassing the full auto stage and setting the rifle to semi-auto. To set the AK-47 to full auto requires the deliberate action of centering the selector lever. To operate the fire selector lever, right-handed shooters have to briefly remove the right hand from the pistol grip, which is ergonomically suboptimal. Some AK-type rifles also have a more traditional selector lever on the left side of the receiver, just above the pistol grip. This lever is operated by the shooter's right thumb and has 3 settings: safe, full auto, and semi-auto. Sights. The AK-47 uses a notched rear tangent iron sight calibrated in 100 meters increments from 100 to 800 meters. The front sight is a post adjustable for elevation in the field. Horizontal adjustment requires a special drift tool and is done by the armorer before issue, or if the need arises, by an armorer after issue. The point-blank range. Battle Zero setting on the 7.62 x 39 mm AK-47 rear tangent sight element corresponds to a 300 m zero. These settings mirror the Mosin Nagant and SKS rifles which the AK-47 replaced. For the AK-47 combined with service cartridges, the 300 meters battle zero setting limits the apparent bullet rise within approximately -5 to +31 centimeters, relative to the line of sight. Soldiers are instructed to fire at any target within this range by simply placing the sights on the center of mass of the enemy target. Any errors in range estimation are tactically irrelevant, as a well-aimed shot will hit the torso of the enemy soldier. Some AK-type rifles have a front sight with a flip-up luminous dot that is calibrated at 50 meters for improved night fighting. Furniture. The AK-47 was originally equipped with a buttstock, handguard and an upper heat guard made from solid wood. With the introduction of the Type 3 receiver, the buttstock, lower handguard and upper heat guard were manufactured from birch plywood laminates. Such engineered woods are stronger and resist warping better than the conventional one-piece patterns, do not require lengthy maturing, and are cheaper. The wooden furniture was finished with the Russian amber shellac finishing process. AKS and AKMS models featured a downward folding metal buttstock similar to that of the German MP-40 submachine gun, for use in the restricted space in the BMP infantry combat vehicle, as well as by paratroops. All 100 series AKs use plastic furniture with side folding stocks. Magazines. The standard magazine capacity is 30 rounds. There are also 10, 20, and 40 round box magazines, as well as 75 round drum magazines. The AK-47's standard 30 round magazines have a pronounced curve that allows them to smoothly feed ammunition into the chamber. The heavy steel construction, combined with feed lips machined from a single steel billet, makes them highly resistant to damage. These magazines are so strong that soldiers have been known to use the mags as hammers, and even bottle openers. Quote, "This contributes to the AK-47 magazine being more reliable, but makes it heavier than US and NATO magazines." The early slab-sided steel AK-47 30-round detachable box magazines weigh 43 kilograms empty. The latest steel AKM 30-round magazines had lighter sheet metal bodies with prominent reinforcing ribs weighing 33 kilograms empty. To further reduce weight, a lightweight magazine with an aluminum body weighing 19 kilograms empty was developed for the AKM that proved to be too fragile, and the small issued amount of these magazines were quickly withdrawn from service. As a replacement, steel reinforced 30-round plastic 7.62 x 39 mm box magazines were introduced. These rust-colored magazines weigh 24 kilograms empty and are often mistakenly identified as being made of bakelite, but were actually fabricated from 2 parts of AGS-4 molding compound, assembled using an epoxy resin adhesive, noted for their durability. These magazines did, however, compromise the rifle's camouflage and lacked the small horizontal reinforcing ribs running down both sides of the magazine body near the front that were added on all later plastic magazine generations. A second-generation steel-reinforced dark brown 30-round 7.62 x 39 mm magazine was introduced in the early 1980s, fabricated from ABS plastic. The third-generation steel-reinforced 30-round 7.62 x 39 mm magazine is similar to the second generation, but is darker colored and has a matte non-reflective surface finish. The current issue steel-reinforced matte true black non-reflective surface finished 7.62 x 39 mm 30-round magazines, fabricated from ABS plastic, weigh 25 kilograms empty. Early steel AK-47 magazines are 9.75 in long, and the later ribbed steel AKM and newer plastic 7.62 x 39 mm magazines are about 1 inch shorter. The transition from steel to mainly plastic magazines yields a significant weight reduction and allows a soldier to carry more ammunition for the same weight. All 7.62 x 39 mm AK magazines have backwards compatible with older AK variants. 10.12 kg is the maximum amount of ammo that the average soldier can comfortably carry. It also allows for best comparison of the three most common 7.62 x 39 mm AK platform magazines. Most Yugoslavian and some East German AK magazines were made with cartridge followers that hold the bolt open when empty. However, most AK magazine followers allow the bolt to close when the magazine is empty. Accessories supplied with the rifle include a 387 mm long 6H3 bayonet featuring a 200 mm long spear point blade. The AK-47 bayonet is installed by slipping the 17.7 mm diameter muzzle ring around the muzzle and latching the handle down on the bayonet lug under the front sight base. All current model AKM rifles can mount under barrel 40 mm grenade launchers such as the GP25 and its variants, which can fire up to 20 rounds per minute and have an effective range of up to 400 meters. The main grenade is the VOG-25 fragmentation grenade, which has a 6 meters lethality radius. The VOG-25PM variant explodes 0.5 to 1 meter above the ground. The AK-47 can also mount a cup-type grenade launcher, the Kalashnikov grenade launcher that fires standard RGD-5 Soviet hand grenades. The maximum effective range is approximately 150 meters. This launcher can also be used to launch tear gas and riot control grenades. All current AKs and some older models have side rails for mounting a variety of scopes and sighting devices, such as the PAS-A01 optical sniper sight. The side rails allow for removal and remounting of optical accessories without interfering with the zeroing of the optic. However, the 100 series side folding stocks cannot be folded with the optics mounted. Characteristics. Accuracy. The AK-47's accuracy has always been considered to be good enough to hit an adult male torso at to about 300 meters, though even experts firing from prone or bench rest positions at this range were observed to have difficulty placing 10 consecutive rounds on target. Nor could the weapon's accuracy be significantly improved with later designs, where its accuracy remained relatively mediocre. An AK can fire a 10-shot group of 5.9 in at 100 meters, and 17.5 in at 300 meters. The newer stamped steel receiver AKM models, while more rugged and less prone to metal fatigue, are actually less accurate than the forged, milled receivers of the predecessors. The milled AK-47s are capable of shooting 3 to 5 in groups at 100 yards, whereas the stamped AKMs are capable of shooting 4 to 6 in groups at 100 yards. The best shooters are able to hit a man-sized target at 800 meters within 5 shots or 10 shots. The single-shot hit probability on the NATO E-type silhouette target of the AK-47 and the later developed AK-74, M16A1 and M16A2 assault rifles were measured by the U.S. military under ideal proving ground conditions in the 1980s as follows. Under worst field exercise circumstances, due to range estimation and aiming errors, the hit probabilities for the tested assault rifles were drastically reduced with differences without operational significance. Service life. The AK-47 and its variants are made in dozens of countries, with quality ranging from finely engineered weapons to pieces of questionable workmanship. As a result, the AK-47 has a service system life of approximately 6,000 to 10,000 to 15,000 rounds. The AK-47 was designed to be a cheap, simple, easy-to-manufacture assault rifle, perfectly matching Soviet military doctrine that treats equipment and weapons as disposable items. As units are often deployed without adequate logistical support and dependent on battlefield cannibalization for resupply, it is actually more cost-effective to replace rather than repair weapons. The AK-47 has small parts and springs that need to be replaced every few thousand rounds. However, every time it is disassembled beyond the field stripping stage, it will take some time for some parts to regain the fit. Some parts may tend to shake loose and fall out when firing the weapon. Some parts of the AK-47 line are riveted together. Repairing these can be quite a hassle, since the end of the rivet has to be ground off and a new one set after the part is replaced.